a guy we're always excited to have on. He is a congressman from the 10th Congressional District. He is Congressman Scott Perry, who joins us here this morning. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. I thought you said that every day on WSBA was like a vacation.
It is for me. My partner, I'm not sure as much. He doesn't give his. He holds his cards close to the vest, Scott. So he's. I can't tell if he's of the same mindset on that or not. He has a lot more things to do in the morning than I do. So I defer to that. But anyway, good to have you on.
Good to be on with you. For your listeners, we always depend on you for the news and the insight and the truth that we so much desire. So we miss you when you're not here.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. And you guys get to go back into session today, a short one though it may be. Obviously, we're in an election year, and people are hitting the road or hitting the hitting their smartphones for electioneering right now. But what's on the docket for this week? I know one of the things we're talking about is keeping the government open again, and then COVID relief is big out there, and other things as well. So what's on the schedule for this week in terms of what you're doing in the House of Representatives?
Well, we're looking at some transportation stuff. We've got the what we call the surface transportation bill, the thing that deals with your highways and your roads, your bridges, your airports, and rail lines and all that stuff. We're trying to get something accomplished there. I don't have a lot of faith that we will, but we passed a very partisan measure out of the House earlier this summer, and we're trying to marry that up with whatever the Senate comes up with. Or has come up with to see if we can get something to the president's desk. So that's on the table. And of course, now newly a new addition to the agenda is hearings into the postmaster, the newly confirmed postmaster general to Joy, and allegations made in the Washington Post. So that's going to take up a lot of oxygen in the room, so to speak, and then. Like you said, probably the biggest things we have to deal with before the end of the fiscal year, which the federal government's fiscal year ends the end of September, is next year's funding, and then, of course, any coronavirus relief package, which has been stalled for all of the summer. I think mostly, from what I hear, based on liability reform for COVID. We very much wanted all my businesses and not even businesses, but organizations like Penn State that would have sporting events and are concerned about a liability exposure there. Just almost any enterprise you can think of is concerned about that, and we have not been able to cajole Speaker Pelosi or Mr. Schumer to the table on that one. So I think that's going to continue. And I think one of the big questions is, will that be wrapped into any, next year budget approval? So whatever we move to get across the finish line so that the fiscal year doesn't see an impasse, is there going to be any of that coronavirus stuff in it? Now, there's been a pledge made, I understand, between some of the parties that we will not have a shutdown coming into into the election and at the end of September. But I will tell you, Gary, look, these things fall apart as fast as they're put together. They can unravel. So we're really that's going to be taking a lot of our attention to try and get that right. And I must say this always: we're always concerned about the fiscal health and well-being and the sanity at the federal level. We know that we have these issues that we have to deal with, whether it's COVID or transportation or anything. But we also have the issue of spending more money than we take in every year, and we just can't continue to do that. So that's going to be part of the equation as well.
I did see this morning where Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Speaker Pelosi have an quote-unquote informal agreement to keep a stopgap government-wide funding bill at the end of September, free of controversy or conflict. That would be something new. A source familiar with the talk said the White House envoy and the Democratic leader haven't agreed to a bill or to legislative text, but they both want to avoid a government shutdown in the middle of a pandemic and an economic cataclysm, blah, 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 blah. And they agreed it should be clean as they both want to keep the government open, the source told Fox News. So we'll see how that all goes down. This idea that we can't come up with anything longer than 35 days or so, or a couple months at a time really kind of wears on people after a while. You know, we all plan budgets out for our year. Obviously, there are adjustments you have to make in that, Scott, and yet government does not translate well out of Main Street to Capitol Avenue up there sometimes, and I don't understand why. Government's supposed to be the extension of the individual, and we seem to somehow accept that it's not. Does that ever bother you at all as you think about this whole thing?
Well, the whole thing bothers me, Gary. I mean, I get it that we have different viewpoints about how things should be accomplished or what things should be priorities,
and that's fine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's fine, but some should be pretty obvious, and we shouldn't It's like everything has to be a deal every time. That no matter what you're trying to get accomplished, there has to be a deal in it where one side takes advantage of the requirement that this has to be done. So unless we pass the appropriations for fiscal year 2021, which begins September, at the end of September, there'll be a shutdown. So that's a point where nobody wants that to happen, and one side always wants to try and get the upper hand to leverage other things in that, and that creates this impasse. That creates last minute negotiations and last minute votes where things that are objectionable or irresponsible or put into the bill by somebody that's been around for a while or been working on something for a long time, and people wonder, how does this stuff get through? Well, you're at a point where you have to decide whether you vote for what's on the table. Is it better than the alternative? And most of the time, it's not much better. It's only a tiny bit better, but it's better. So then, of course, the electioneering starts. The other thing that we do, Gary, is that we run a lot of legislation through. Both sides do this with a view towards the next election, and we in Washington call those messaging bills. So the bill is never meant to be passed and signed into law. It's meant to be forwarded through a committee or even off the House floor, knowing it'll never see the light of day otherwise, but that we can run ads. Somebody can run ads for or against the other person saying, you voted for this, you voted against that. And, of course, these are huge packages where there's bound to be something in there that your bosses, your constituents are going to want. Meanwhile, we just disregard the fact that 99% of the bill nobody wants, but we passed it anyhow, so we have this messaging opportunity in a campaign. There's a lot of that goes on in Washington, D.C., and you're going to see the effects of it in the next 60 days or so with the ads.
And it's safe in that it's so ridiculous it's never going to pass, so you don't have to worry about being held responsible, and yet at the same time you could make a statement through political advertising, which is really kind of despicable when you think about the whole thing. As we have Congressman Scott Perry with us here this morning from the 10th Congressional District, we have a forum that will be coming up October 30th between Congressman Perry and also Eugene DePasquale, our former Auditor General, as the two are running for the 10th Congressional seat. And that will be a 2-hour forum that's going to last from 7 until 9 o'clock on Friday, October 30th. So mark that on your calendar somewhere, because I don't think you two guys are together all that often. I know you're on 2 televised debates, Scott, but you're going to be with us here on WSBA. We're very glad to be hosting that, and glad that you and Eugene will both be on here for that forum. It's going to be a discussion of issues, and we want to make sure that people know exactly where both of you stand on the various issues that are confronting us right now. So we're looking forward to having you both on during that date.
Looking forward to being there with you, Gary.
And thank you so much. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a forum that you were involved in, the 10th Congressional District Forum at the Rotary Club of York in Spring Garden a little over a week ago. And you were asked about systemic racism. I was reading this article in the New York Dispatch. And I wanted you to get into that a little bit about, because that's one of the big issues that's out there right now about, Black Lives Matter, systemic racism in the country. How bad is it? How much does it really exist? Your thoughts about all that right now from your standpoint as a congressman and also as a citizen.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking, Gary. First of all, I think we need to just say that racism in any form, all forms, racism, bigotry, those type of things, they have to be derided and denounced everywhere. Absolutely. They are encountered by everyone in our society. And what frustrates me, among other things, is that I said to the reporter that essentially exactly that, and that I found racism abhorrent, and that it exists in our society. And one of my frustrations, of course, is with the press that has their own political agenda. The headline says something if I can paraphrase Perry.
I've actually got it in front of me here. It says, Perry, systemic racism isn't real. Black death sensationalized. Logan Hullinger, I guess, is the author of that. But go ahead.
And so that's his encapsulation of a conversation that he and I had, which couldn't be. It's just completely off base and incorrect. I obviously said that racism exists and it must be stamped out everywhere that it's encountered. But it just belies the fact that the other things are part of the conversation. And I would say that if we're going to have a honest and sincere conversation about this, and we need to, and I think we're trying to have it as a society, we can't. We're not going to be able to have that candid conversation when the people, the participants that are willing to have it, that want to have it, are derided in the press by somebody that's got their own political agenda, and we're never going to solve these issues, and we're not going to bring unity to our communities if that's the case. If everyone is chilled from the conversation.
You bring up a great point here. Now, here's a situation where I kind of know you, and you and I have talked about some of these issues before, and I know the way you're talking this morning about this, that's how you feel. When someone from the media, or anybody else for that matter, but the media gets tattooed with this, as they should, but someone else takes a statement and tries to figure out the very worst connotation of it by leaving things out or not putting all things in that were in the conversation, to leave you with a different perception than what the truth really was, there's something really horrible about that in society. Don't we want to have how a person totally feels about something instead of trying to figure out a way to paint that person into a corner? The problem is we're now in a society where we seem to want to paint that person in a corner and say, okay, I've got this perception of someone, therefore I'm going to make sure it's a self-fulfilling prophecy by what I write down about what they said. Hope that didn't sound too much into the weeds, but am I off base with that?
No, as far as I'm concerned, you're not off base with that. And as you know, Gary, these are incredibly sensitive issues, incredibly sensitive conversations, and what we need, I think, is more dialogue, not less. And any time that someone like the reporter that did what he did does that, I think that it's all it does is discourages the discourse and the conversation. Again, the sincere conversation that I think people are willing to have, that people want to have, but when they see that happen to other people, that they just want to retreat to their corners and not be involved in the conversation, because quite honestly, they don't need the trouble, right? They don't need the hassle in their lives or any of that. How does that help us move towards a solution and more understanding?
Final question for you, about 30 seconds left. To going to that point, you talk about a sincere conversation. I think a lot of people have checked out of the conversation in this country because conversation means two sides are listening. And they're just saying, okay, I'll see you November 3rd. I don't have anything more to say about anything because I'm going to get trodden down. Your thoughts about that as you kind of get around your district and hear different people talk and citizens that come, from York County or other places here and give you their thoughts on that?
Well, I think to a certain extent you're right, and certainly in public that is the case. But I can tell you, Gary, I've spent a fair amount of time, a great amount of time, talking to constituents either on the phone or, behind a mask in person or what have you. And they're all very eager to tell me of their concerns and their frustrations about what they see happening in the community right now. And quite honestly, I think they are happy that someone's willing to take it on. It's imperfect, they know, but they want things to improve, and they are absolutely willing to stand up and be heard.
Congressman, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Thank you so much. I know we'll be talking to you one more time before the 30th, but October 30th, you and Eugene DePasquale will be here on our show for that 2-hour forum. Looking forward to that. And in the meantime, continue to work hard, and we wish the very best for you.
Well, thank you, Gary. Enjoy the weather as we get into fall and the end of summer here. God bless you. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. You too. Take care.